Okay, guys, in the newest episode of Denim and Leather podcast, we have a special guest because I've known him for, now we were talking about it, 18 years.
18 years, man. Thank you for having me.
David Mukka, thank you for coming.
Jeez, I mean, first of all, I gotta say, I love the name of this podcast. It's Denim and Leather. It says all about the culture, all about the niche. When I saw that first episode you aired, I still remember that one. Because I was giving you props for that. You remember I wrote to you about that first episode. It's so niche. I feel like it's right there somewhere at the end of the 90s, at the beginning of the 2000s, which is definitely a culture that's coming back right now. It was more mind over matter, but also substance over that whole plasticity of just marketing and just a whole lot of hullabaloo about nothing. So I feel like mumble raps out in this podcast and all this, I mean, of course, I got nothing against rap, but I feel like that whole culture of grunge and then alternative music and I believe there was a shift actually when I think about it right now in the maybe around 2010 is where caring for your art stopped being cool. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like the artists started not giving a shit about what they do.
Yeah.
And then that became how cool you are. It's like the less you care about your work, the cooler you are. And it wasn't like that before. Before that, it was like the more you give yourself to your work and to your craft, that's what was cool. And so I feel like you're kind of getting back to those, to those values. And that's what makes me care a lot about this podcast and about all your guests and about what you're doing here.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. And I never stopped. Since the 90s, when I was a teenager, I'm the same, I did this my band and everything. But
I do.
But we did everything like this, and I'm doing this I don't know, for years, man, for decades.
One can tell you care about it a lot and you can't fake that. And this stuff really matters to you. And that's why this podcast has been honest. And that's why people are going to relate to it. It's because you don't bullshit people. It's like you can see you're actually a genuine nerd for music and you care and you're invested in it and all of that shows.
Yeah. And the reason you're here is because of your music and other projects as well. So I wanted to start asking you about when I met you when you were like a teenager. I think you were 15, 16. You had long dreads, right?
Yeah.
And you played guitar acoustic, I think, back then.
I still do, yeah.
So how did you start with music?
Oh man, I always knew I was going to be an artist of some sort. When I was when I was really young. And I had a problem, like I guess if I was crying or something like that, my mom would come up to me and she would go, here's a blank piece of paper, just draw me whatever you're feeling, just, doodle something on this piece of paper. And I guess that was a big part of why I came to be an artist, is because when I'm not able to say something or explain myself to myself, I will express myself through either music or writing or acting nowadays, and I will write music and stories and film, and so that's an essential part to who I am.
So you've been doing it since you were a little kid.
Always.
But when was the time when you learned the first instrument, first band and stuff like that?
I picked up the guitar when I was like, I don't know, like maybe 12, 13. I was really bad at it. I had an old guitar, which I think is the right way to start playing any instrument, by the way. Get a very bad instrument. If you can play that, you learn yourself, you teach yourself how to play that, then you're absolutely good to play a very expensive, very, nice instrument. But I had a very, very, very shitty guitar, and I learned how to play that. And I just learned chords and stuff. I just learned, I remember I would teach myself just how to play by heart. I didn't really understand harmony or musical theory, or I didn't read and write notes. None of that back then. But and then I started. So I came here I came to Macedonia from Finland. I came to Macedonia And what happened was I got myself into that high school, the international one, Nova. So at Nova, I immediately formed a band. I started going to drama class a lot. And so we formed a band, and then we sucked. I mean, we played in front of like presidents and prime ministers of Macedonia at the time, I remember, because Nova is a prestigious school.
International school.
Yeah, so they put us in front of like these politicians and crowds of people, but then important key members were in those crowds, like political people or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And we played in front of all that as the best that the school has to offer in terms of like music. We sucked. We were just a cover band. We played a lot of Billy Idol. I remember back in the day, that was our guy. And he's making a comeback now, by the way. He's got a new single with Avril Lavigne, just saw a couple of days ago. Really glad to see him work again. But yeah, we played a lot of that, and we were really bad. I remember I must have bumped my head on the neck of the guitarist's guitar a couple of times on every show, because I'd be leaning over to get some cables, and we were all around the place. We didn't know what we were doing. But then I ditched Nova. I went to music high school, and then I met my band, who was Gadget and all those guys. And so we started playing. We figured out that we knew exactly the same songs. We knew by heart. We knew Deep Purple songs, Led Zeppelin songs, all those 70s rock and roll
Hard
bands.
rock, yeah.
Absolutely. Sabbath was a big one as well. And I remember I knew how to sing all those songs, and they knew how to play all those songs. And so we were like, this is a match made in heaven. Like, it's all, basically we know each other's music. That was the first time when I thought, there's more like me. And if I could just be a part of this scene, then I will feel like I'm cool, and I'm doing something in terms of expressing myself.
Yeah.
So that's where it all kind of clicked. We started playing with those guys for a long time. We played with them, I think, in 3 different setups over the course.
Was that the birth of Project Orpheus for you? Or was it before that?
No, it was after that, actually.
Oh, after that.
Our first band was called Hideout. It was a post-metal band. Back then, we would listen to a lot of Avenged Sevenfold and those kinds of bands. That was like what was happening at the time. Long Beach.
Thrash metal and metalcore and stuff like that.
Absolutely, all that. And hardcore as well, a lot of hardcore music. And that was back in the day. So we started kind of doing our own version of that, even though I'm a goofball. So I always would do the lyrics, and the vocal melodies will always be a little bit more sentimental than, those rough lyrics that those guys had. They were all about the army and like, defeating, the enemy or whatever. Yeah. And so our lyrics weren't anything like that. It was about me being a softie, getting my heart broken or whatever. And then we blended that really well with that powerful post-metal sound. And that was rather original. And we did an awesome album. That album, I remember that was called Paradoxia. And the band was called Hideout. That's really old. That's like 13-ish old. And we played a lot of gigs with that band back in that was high school days. So like so many high school kids would show up if the capacity of, like, you remember the club Castro? Super Hicks.
I played there, yeah.
There you go. Well, when we played Castro, you can maybe get 600 people in Castro and no more. And I remember kids, when they came to Castro and we did these, the kind of gigs we did is like 2-3 bands playing back to back to back in a night. And the venue would be packed, man. There would be 800 people in a 600 people capacity venue. So it was like this. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I can't shake off these memories of, like, you know how when you're a vocalist, so I was the front man of all the bands, and like I was the lead singer, meaning I would often not have an instrument to play. Yeah. So all my bandmates, they're tuning their guitars, man. Jigger will be toggling with the drums, and everybody's got their own thing prior to a gig. And you, as the vocalist, you got your vocal check. It's like check 1, 2, and there's nothing more you can do to that. So I would be backstage always. I used to read books, and because I always read, like I've always read books. And the band started getting after me. It's like, who do you think you are? You're getting like litter it on us, and that's, that was a kind of they thought it was a flex. I was actually reading. But then a couple of times, and then before those gigs, I would read a bit, like a passage off of some book that I'd be reading. And then the next day, after the gig, some girls in the schools would come up and they would bring me that book that I had been promoting the other night. And they would go, "Can you sign this, please? We bought the book you were reading from. We got into it and all that." So I was like, in my band, I was like, there you go. I'm actually playing my part in like spreading literature and making it kind of cool. And that was, for me, that was the win. Because Skopje you're not cool if you read books in Skopje. You're cool if you don't care, if you drink a beer, if you get, messed up Friday night, right? That's kind of the culture. Yep. And so when I read books and people thought it was good, it was, fascinating maybe, it was cool, I felt like I'd done something for the...
Well, that probably helped you to write lyrics afterwards and to do screenplays now.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, when I think about it now, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been a literature geek all my life.
So how do you connect the art of music, and when did you start with the other stuff afterwards, with the NASA thing and with the artistic thing, like acting, like screenwriting and stuff like that? When did you connect all those dots?
It happened very organically for me, very naturally. And the way it happened is that at some point down the line, I realized I'm not falling in love with the role of being a vocalist. I'm not falling in love with the role of being the frontman. I was the frontman, and I've always been nothing but the frontman. But as most of the other musicians, I would argue, is that I started my musical journey and my artistic journey for all the wrong reasons. So when I was a kid, I was like 14, 15, you put me up on stage, I get that applause at the end of a show, and I thought, man, I'm the dude, I've done my job here. So as soon as you get your applause, I thought that was what it was all about. And due to circumstances, we had awesome success that first 1 or 2 years we were playing. We had sold out shows, a lot of people showing up to those concerts.
Good following.
Yeah, and the culture was different. A lot more people showed up to bands back then than what they do right now.
Yeah.
And so that gave me a sense of, well, I guess I realized at some point that that's not what I'm really about. It felt empty. It felt like I would get the applause and it wasn't enough anymore. If I knew I could have done a better job, at a show or a concert, the applause wasn't, the praise, the whole thing wasn't enough anymore. It was like, it felt like I was hungry all the time. I was like eating ashes. That's how it felt to me. It's like, it wasn't sustenance food. So then I realized I really got to do my homework. I got to work on my craft so that when I play to my cat, it will be the equivalent of playing to 3,000 people sometimes with the same kind of approach of like playing to the cat, because I'm my most rigorous kind of critic. At one point, I realized that I will be judging myself, way more roughly than other people will be judging me. And if I'm real, like I can pinpoint, I didn't really do a job at that fourth song at the set list tonight, And so that's how I got my journey of like really getting in deep instead of like staying at the surface of just wanting to be, wanting the fame and wanting the praise, the applause or whatever. That wasn't enough. That was never enough. So I started working on myself. I started improving my musicianship skills. I started really, learning about music and that harmony, all that stuff, theory. I got to understand the language, and it is a language of and when I started doing that, all the opportunities kind of came to me instead of me chasing them. So I was like this guy doing my own thing, and then NASA knocked on the door. I mean, maybe not necessarily in that order, because I started doing films first and then it was the NASA thing. But for that first film, man, they directors came up to me and they were like, "We want you to play a lead in this film. You're probably not going to be interested in it, but because you're not in film, but here's an offer. Think about it, blah, blah, blah." I rejected that offer on the spot. I was like, I'm a full-time musician, guys. I don't identify with being an actor or whatever. But then they kept coming back, and they kept coming back for about 6 months, and the offers got better and the role got better, because they would be rewriting that role for me to play that role. So, and that was The Elephant. That was the first short film we did. And it got into 2 festivals. It got a screening in London. It got a screening in Los Angeles through some festival that still is, you know, globally kind of well known. And that was my first film project. So from then on out, I realized that I've been doing lyrics that aren't about me anyway. I was like inventing these fictional characters about this guy goes there, does this, all kind of like abstract settings and scenarios. So I was like, maybe I can use my body as well to get into the visual side of things. And lo and behold, that just helped me tell my stories better or tell other people's stories better.
Yeah, so organically you said you went from that to acting. How many projects have you done since you started acting? Until now, maybe, I don't know. Short films, movies.
If you count writing, co-producing, and acting all together, then it must be a number that's above 15 projects for sure. Different titles, different, yeah. It's all on IMDb. It's public info.
So you've been in it for 5-6 years, maybe?
Just about. I think 5.5. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I think I met you at a bar here 5 years ago, and you said, "You know what? I'm going into acting, man. They offered me something."
Did I? Did you?
Yeah. That's when we met.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And you were like, I'm getting into this, and you were like psyched,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Was that before? Do you think that was before I started?
At the Che bar, So you were like, I'm going into acting. It was like 5 years ago.
Beats me if I remember it now.
Yeah,
but that the math works out. The math works. It might have been there when I was considering either playing or rejecting that role for good.
Yeah.
But that was an insane time for me. Yeah.
So it's what is the most dear stuff for you that you do? You do a series, or you do a movie, a long movie, or screenwriting? What's the best for you?
I'm not going to give you the bullshit answer when people go, well, everything has its own, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm going to give you an actual honest to God answer. I'm in love with the limited series format, because that is that's kind of like, that allows us to tell a story of a structure of a feature-length film that's just longer. Because in my heart of hearts, I'm in love with long feature films, but you can't do that for the past decades. And I'm talking long, like Lawrence of Arabia long, epic journey.
3 hours.
Absolutely, 3+. I believe it's around 3.5.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm in love with that format because, for example, Stranger Things, which I'm not a massive fan of Stranger Things, but I'm a massive fan of that format where it's formatted as a feature-length film, but chopped up into like 6 to 8 to 10 bits.
Yeah.
And I feel like that today, in this day and age, is absolutely, we need more of that. And that's my favorite thing to do. And right now I've been working on a massive project of such grandeur, and format, and I've been on it for about 3-4 years now. We're in late development, and it takes I'm working on that almost every day. So that's like that's like my second most important thing after getting roles in other people's films. So I'm an actor first and foremost, but we do have our own baby that we're working on.
I wanted to ask you about the series trailer that you've done, Black Ops. Did it happen to become something out of it, or because everybody was expecting to be a series or to be a movie?
Well, for that one, see, people, well, what I don't think people understand across Eastern Europe in general is that is a very common thing to do in the United States, is that you do a concept trailer, right? That's how you pitch a project.
Okay, yeah.
And when I asked around in Macedonia, I was like asking directors who are working directors here, I was like, how do you guys do a mood board for a project? And for movies, they said to me, well, we do pictures, we do photographs. And I'm like, I don't really understand how a photograph can really describe a video format. And I wasn't a fan of that. So I said, let's do our own concept trailer as a proof of concept and shoot that. And then people can make up their own minds. And more importantly, companies can make up their own minds, whether they like the vibe or...
It was amazing, man. It was like...
Thank you.
Yeah.
We put a lot of work into that. And I gotta say, that's still being worked on. So that cannot fly if you just... And we got a number of offers to do it in Macedonia under the capacity of Macedonia and the Balkans and Eastern Europe. But that was only ever gonna make it so far if we did it for in Macedonian, for national television. It was only gonna make it so far, maybe as far as like the adjacent countries or the region. It would never have been a global project.
Yeah, but it probably opened a lot of doors for you.
And not only did it, absolutely. And then we got a few offers here from Macedonia to do it, but it needed to be done in the native language. It needed to be done under certain constraints of like TV networks and certain stuff that would have made it very local as opposed to global. And I was the one that pulled the plug, and people still hate me for that. People that were working with and for the project at the time, basically it was everybody else. Well, I want to say everybody else, but a lot of people attached to the project wanted to just get whatever they could. And wanted to start shooting, and they were, the hype was up anyway. Yeah. And I pulled the plug on that. I said, we've put too much work into this in order for it to become a 2-week thing that just kind of happens and everybody forgets. By the time the 2 weeks are passed. So
you make it big or go home, right?
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, that was always my philosophy with music. And then let's define big. Big, not in terms of it has to hit the numbers or anything like that. It has to be, I'm defining a project that's big, especially the movie industry. I say we gotta make films, at least the films that we produce, we gotta make them rewatchable. So it's not my goal to make a watchable film, because that you watch it once, so popcorn or something, and then you move on to the next thing. In order for it to have a niche following, such as we were talking about your podcast and that, you want to branch out, but also you want a niche because those people end up being the absolute nerding out, hardcore fan base of whatever you do.
Yes.
And so without that, and I grew up on video games that had that, music that had cult following, films, and so without that, I don't feel like it will be a successful project.
Same, man. I'm still rewatching films from the 80s, 90s.
Absolutely.
And games. I mean, I still play Vice City,
Absolutely. And Zelda is still better than a lot of games that are being produced today. Yeah. And so by those standards, I would say, and that's, by the way, that's one of the projects that I've never stopped working on. So we're still working on the Black Ops franchise thing. It's going to be a working title. Chances are we're not going to end up calling it Black Ops due to copywriting, video game related issues, because there's the Call of Duty one. That's a big franchise. We don't want to get in the way of anything. But that thing really opened doors in terms of like, when I pulled the plug here, I thought, well, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to reach out to the right people, the right studios, and see how far we could take that. And that's one of the projects we're working on.
Now that you mentioned California, you're like half a year you're living there.
Yeah,
Almost,
I
right?
tend to be there a lot.
But for years now.
Yeah.
So how does it happen? You work there, you film something, you.
I initially went there for NASA. And now I got to touch on the NASA thing, I guess. At one
Yes.
point, NASA reached out. As you know, we have a representative that's, I don't know the official term or thing, and I hope nobody minds that I say that we have a Macedonian analog astronaut who's Martha, who you know.
Yeah.
And Martha, I call her.
Mukka.
I call her Smartha because she wants to be smart all the time, and she is. But so we have the closest we have to NASA on a regional level is that girl because she worked her butt off to get into the right circles and promote the space sector both locally and globally, and she's doing wonderful things. She's going on these analog missions in like
desert
these
or something.
terrariums,
Yeah.
that simulate like being on another planet. And but more importantly than that, she's done a lot of networking with NASA executives, NASA officials, a lot of people. And so I guess, I don't know which came first, but so at one point NASA was doing outreach for this one of the most, well, not one of the most, but rather I should say the biggest hackathon in the world, which is Space Apps. It's called NASA Space Apps. And they reached out and basically they said, we're doing outreach because I feel like in NASA's philosophy, at one point they figured out that by working with solely the scientific sector, they were only going to get so far. So they reached out to me. They were like, we want to include artists and people who have a clout outside of science so that we can branch out, reach out to other people, new people, and we want to get new people interested in, you know, the outreach programs that we got going on. So they recruited me as their host. So I started hosting, I believe I started hosting in Cleveland, Ohio, in NASA Glenn, one of their two biggest research centers. And then the next year, we did such a good job that first year that they said, basically you could pick your next venue. And I knew I was gonna go to California after that, because they have a wonderful research center in Silicon Valley that's called NASA Ames. I ended up hosting that. And so I transferred to Ames and I'm still doing that.
So you're doing it annually?
Yeah.
For
every
a few
year.
years now, yeah.
Yeah, it's in October. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so because of that you connected with a lot of people in the industry, and now besides that you're doing the.
From there, it was a 5-hour drive or a half an hour flight to Los Angeles, and I started going to Los Angeles. That first time I went to Los Angeles, I had nobody. I didn't know anyone. Mm-hmm. I slept in a very, very shitty Airbnb, and just meeting new people. But then,
like Axl Rose, welcome to the jungle.
Absolutely. So right there in the jungle's crack, I was right there. And Los Angeles is funny because you go down Beverly Hills and then Hollywood Boulevard, and right on the other side of Hollywood Boulevard is West Hollywood, where's the kind of like the I don't want to say the ghetto because it's not a ghetto, but it's a very cheap part of town. And I was there that first time I went there. I was there. And you're so close. You're close to Beverly. You can smell all the perfume of the dogs walking around the street. And you're sleeping on the floor, you know, with cockroaches and stuff. But it is Los Angeles, and anything could happen.
Yeah, some rock star once said, there's the ozone, you know, the ozone layer, the hole in the ozone layer.
You bet.
It's the biggest over Los Angeles because of the hairspray.
Absolutely it is. Yeah. I mean, even dogs would use hairspray. Yeah, for sure. And now I guess it's very difficult to get outside of the bullshit circles of Los Angeles, because I would say in the Hollywood industry is like 70% of people are talking the talk and not a lot of them will walk the walk.
Yeah.
And so people live there in between, like putting you and me together. They would get some percentage off of that, and like they're not really producing anything. They're not making anything. They're making people meet and that's where they live. And so that's why you get a lot of hustlers, a lot of people who promise you things that actually are. And if you go wide-eyed in Los Angeles, if you go like, I'm gonna get discovered, I think you're not gonna, chances are you're gonna be played a fool, and you're gonna, you know, you're really gonna be on the receiving side of that. Receiving end of that. But so then luckily we come from Europe, we come from, you know, this part of the world where, you know, we're used to, we know the drill.
You know the tricks.
You know, some tricks, yeah. And that puts you in a better position to like really understand industries and people and really understand what people are talking about behind the words, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, and so it took me about a while. It took me about 2 years, I guess, 2.5 years to get outside of those circles that would just talk.
Yeah.
And luckily now we're working with we're already under contract with multiple production companies in LA and Hollywood, and we've got casting directors, wonderful casting directors, and I'm and we're doing so many other things.
Or in some agency probably.
Not yet, because it's very, very tricky. I have gotten offers, but it's very tricky to get that right agent, because what they do is they will shelf you. I'm getting projects through my casting director, I'm getting projects, but that's technically an abnormal way of getting work, which I am getting work, but I'm not getting it the regular way, because I don't want to just sign with any agent and have them shelf you. Is that they will sign you
and not be free for other stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know.
So I take my time and you know, choosing the right agency and the right people to represent me. Luckily, I've got some people in Europe that already kind of cut into that work, but I got a wonderful casting director that gets me projects and stuff. And we're working with a wonderful screenwriting agency in Hollywood as well, the Professional Pen. I'm such a fan of them. And then I got an opportunity to work with them, which is incredible. More and more, I'm starting to work with people that I've admired in terms of like even idolizing to a certain extent. Got a brilliant guy in the UK who's a film critic, and then a wonderful writer in Hollywood, and the casting director. I'm basically a fan of all those people. And on top of it all, we're working together. So I feel blessed. I'm in my lane. And I don't really post all that much. If you've seen, like, I don't feel the need to talk about myself anymore. That, like, I used to talk about myself, and I feel like a lot of people do that to fill in the gaps of like putting in actual work.
Yeah.
I got nothing to say. Lately, I'm doing my work. I'm in my lane. I'm getting the results that I've always wanted to get. And yeah, sure, I'm as a public person, it's a public type of job that I'm doing, so I will promote stuff, but not.
But you did promote the Oscars. You were at the Oscars there.
Sure. Yeah, I will post that
last year or something.
2024. So yeah, last year.
It was amazing when I saw your stories and stuff. I was wow, at the Oscars, it was. You got an invitation. You were there. So.
Through Berlinale, yeah, we were at the film festival Berlinale, and some producer then gave me an invite to that. Yeah. That was surreal experience altogether. Yeah. And I met so many people.
Okay, man, at the end of this episode of this interview, what are your short-term plans and future long-term plans?
My most important thing right now is to, the next step, I guess, would be to really end the development phase of that limited series that I mentioned, and start getting into pre-production with that, because that's our baby, you know?
Yeah.
That's the thing that really makes me passionate about filmmaking. And then, of course, I can't wait. I got a few upcoming roles, both in Europe and in these parts of the world, and in the States, and I'm looking forward to that. And what I really want to do is I really want to stay in my lane, to be as productive as possible, and to provide entertainment for people, and that could also maybe kind of get them to think critically, or maybe emotionally, spiritually, get them to places that they've never been before, narratively, by telling stories that will take people to new spots, new emotional journeys, new intellectual journeys. I want to encourage people to explore, and I want us all to be part of that genuine sense of discovery through fictional narrative.
Where are you music-wise?
I'm making an EP. We're making a new EP with Valentino Tinscan. Valentino Enterprise Studios. We're making that new EP. I can't help it. I can't.
How many albums do you have?
I think so. It's the Monsters one under my name. Then we have the Project Orpheus album. And then before that was the Hideout album. So I've gotten 3 albums out. This will be my 4th, well, not album, but EP.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing, and you probably gonna mix those arts together in the future. I mean, music with film and everything.
Absolutely, brother. We're producing original soundtracks for films and scores. It's just because we can't help doing music. We love music so much. It's got to come out somewhere. Yeah. And films are a perfect platform. Film for me has really encompassed everything that I love. Even video games, I draw so much from video games. Playing characters, I will base them on video game characters because that's the culture we grew up in. It's music, books, films, and video games. And that's what I'm all about. And luckily, I get to do that for a living. And I feel so lucky. And it's like, don't tell anyone, but like, I'm getting paid for this shit. And I would do it for 0 money. Honestly, I would do it in my free time. It's insane.
You're enjoying.
I am. And I think we all should be too. It's like, never work for other people. Like try, everybody out there who's listening to this podcast, I'm guessing it's creative people, try and work for yourselves. That way you can really provide to work as much as you want to, but you can really put a price from a business thing. You can also pay yourself to keep on doing and paying the bills and put some food on the table by doing what you genuinely love. Because guess what? Nobody else can offer that. Only you have the thing you're working on. Never sell out to like these evil companies and corporations where they make you like work for 8 hours and then you're tired. You got to watch some mind-numbing Netflix show that you're never really watch otherwise. And so that's if there's any takeaway from this, I would encourage fellow artists to keep working in your art, man. That's what really matters. That's what really kind of discovers new frontiers and pushes the boundary of human exploration, such as with NASA. It's the same thing. We get to invent new stories every day. That's what's really important.
Well, man, that's like a greatest talk at the end of a show, man.
Thank you. There's your soundbite.
Greatest speech, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I love this podcast. Y'all keep watching Denim and Leather.
Thanks. Bye, man.